So I'm going to talk about digital misattribution. So over the past years, digital attribution has been increasingly taking its place at the marketing effectiveness table. With it, it brings a number of key insight that previously we haven't known what's going on. It's given us a granular level of detail that, as we've seen with all the fragmented kind of digital activity, is becoming important. But it comes with a number of challenges and difficulties that should never really be overlooked. So in the next 15 minutes, I'll try and get some of that time back from Stephen. I'll cover what are the benefits of digital attribution, because they really do exist. I'll cover what are the challenges, where are its pitfalls, and then kind of how should we bring it together in terms of the marketing suite of tools to really get the best out of it. So attribution has evolved into two main approaches. I'm sure many of you are aware of econometric modelling. It gives you an aggregate overview of what is driving your business KPIs. It understands the role of media, digital media, but in the context of all your other drivers. So it understands it in relation to price, promotion, seasonality, weather. Then we have the newer toy in town, the digital attribution side of things. Now this looks at an individual journey and understands what that individual did and what digital touch points it interacted with, be it display, social, paid search, right to that point of conversion. Then it reattributes that credit for the conversion back down the line of your digital touch points. So yeah, there are really key benefits of attribution. Because of the growth in digital activity, we now have direct access to real-time data. We are seeing digital metrics change. We are tracking more and more online dashboards, etc. We are now so much better informed of what is happening right now. We are not waiting 6 months for a brand metric study to then find out how our awareness has changed or penetration has changed. We are seeing data as it happens, sometimes within the hour. So through digital attribution, we can now measure the role of our campaigns. We are seeing what our display activity is doing. We are seeing what our search activity is doing. And we are focusing on the sales or the kind of conversion that that is bringing to our business. So we are now streamlining our thoughts on what is our campaign delivering. And through all this digital, because of the knowledge, because of everything, we are now able to adjust our strategies faster. So we can change where we're spending the budget. We can move budget quicker between different display placements, between different keyword search groups. We are now able to respond with a lot more agility into what is happening online. I'm going to go through some really obvious reasons why digital attribution is growing in importance. 88% of adults are all online. In fact, as you get younger, that goes almost to 100%. We are spending 1 day a week online. That's around 20% of the time we are awake, we are online. So it's obviously a channel that people are going to want to advertise to us on. As Martin mentioned though, this is getting more fragmented. So traditional methods of measuring the role of display, of search, are not able to go down to this granularity of detail. Not only is fragmented approach, we've got the different devices, mobile, desktop, tablets, etc. It is just getting more and more complex. We as consumers are using more devices. We have 7.4 internet devices in our households on average. 50% of adults are now watching on demand, and almost all of them are using more than one source. We are no longer loyal to anything. We are just diverse in how we consume our media. And we are spending more online. So there's more focus on that online conversion. Year after year after year, this is increasing, and this is forecast to continue that growth. Barclaycard predict that around 11% year-on-year growth in e-commerce. The last Cyber Monday was the biggest promotional sales activity there's been online, and there is nothing to suggest that that is going to stop. So there's continually more focus on what we can attribute credit for online. So is digital attribution the silver bullet? Does it answer our questions around measurements? Does it dig down to the detail? Yes. Does it understand what's happening online? Yes. The challenge is, however, is, as much as online is growing, not all of our business is online. When we look at retail as an example, 80% of retail is still offline. It's still on the high streets, in the store. Digital attribution is therefore only focusing on 20% of your activity. Even if you are 100% online. Well, we've mentioned 50% of budget is on digital. So how are we measuring the other 50%? Digital attribution isn't accounting for the other 50%. It is purely focused on the digital activity. Therefore, we are making uninformed decisions because the credit is not being properly distributed. Not only that, as much as online there is a lot of data available, it's unfortunately not as perfect as we'd like to imagine. People delete their own cookies, which means that we may be interacting with 5, 6, 7 digital touch points, but because I deleted my cookies, when it comes to the point of conversion, I'm only seeing 2 touch points. So I'm attributing credit to that conversion part of the journey and not attributing credit to the whole digital journey as we might like to believe. Then again, big in the news is around the walled gardens. We're not even really getting access to the data that we require. Google, Facebook are stopping sharing some of their data that makes attribution possible. And then within that, we've now got Apple stopping sharing Facebook, placing web tracking tools on their devices. So again, there are people stopping sharing what would seem like perfectly good data to do digital attribution. And then there's the external factors. So I'm sure we've all been in a room where we've looked at performance over a given month and said that that was either to blame on the weather or to credit to the weather. Attribution doesn't know what the weather is. So we are missing that part. We are missing those external shocks to our system. The royal wedding, Grow Retail was accredited for growing. It wouldn't know that. It wouldn't know that it happened. And then, after looking at all the data, after looking at all the kind of challenges, we then have what is actual attribution. What really does it do? And there are so many approaches to do this. We have your last click, we have the first click, we have linear credit, we have position-based, we have time decay. All very much rules-based, based on the data that we're seeing, but they're very subjective, and there's no necessarily guarantee that any of those are right. Some are useful, but they're not necessarily a true reflection of how we should attribute credit. Then we have data-driven. So again, we then have a number of different statistical approaches that is starting to attribute credit back down the various digital touch points. But again, it's hard to understand which one of those is right for your business because they all have their merits and they all have their pitfalls. Some look at the role of the sequencing, some don't. But they do at least look at converting and non-converted data. So again, there is no clear standardization about what the approach for attribution is. In a ThinkBox study that we were doing in partnership with ThinkBox, we were looking at building the business case for advertising. And actually, this came up with a number of key insights that we thought would be useful as well for the point of digital marketing and digital attribution. As a summary, it was around building that business case for marketing. It was about understanding the profit that marketing was delivering across a range of categories, 11 categories in total. We looked at 2,000 advertising campaigns, and we assessed both the short and the long-term impact of advertising. As part of these campaigns, over 25% of the campaigns had some form of display or online video advertising as part of it. And what we saw was quite an interesting finding. We talk about the efficiency, so the amount that a campaign is driving for every pound, dollar, euro spent. And it's quite stark. Within travel, we were seeing radio, press, TV were the most efficient channels at driving sales. Across retail, FMCG, automotive, TV is still the most efficient channel at driving performance. And also, let's just focus on the short term. Digital activity, as we've been going through, is focusing more and more on that point of conversion. So we are only looking at the short-term uplift that our advertising is delivering. In the ThinkBox study, we actually found that that was actually only 42% of the total impact that marketing was having to a business. So the more we focus on attribution and the more we focus on digital, we're actually missing out on potentially 58% worth of revenue. And then when we look at where this long-term impact is coming from, we see online display has a very minimal impact in long-term changing our perceptions towards a brand, whereas particularly in contrast to TV, where it's almost over twice the impact is through the long-term impact to our brand. So how do we use attribution? How can we tap into the insight that attribution provides, but not kind of get over some of those pitfalls? Well, total view attribution fuses these approaches together. So what you see is econometrics will provide the big picture of what is happening to your business, be it online and offline. And then you've got your digital attribution that is providing some of the granular insights into what is the role of your different strategies, what does it matter about which devices you're attacking, mobile versus desktop. How are the different sites performing? What are the impact of placements, different creative messages? You can go down to that detail, but you need to take it into context of all the other factors, be it online and offline as well. In terms of your digital attribution as well, you need a transparent approach. You need to understand the differences between all the potential different solutions and work out what that is meaning for your outcome. It may be that last click isn't necessarily wrong. It may be very useful because of the cookie deletion, etc. But you need a transparent approach where you really understand the assumptions that are being made behind the digital attribution modeling. That will then start to understand the short term. But as I mentioned a moment ago, long-term impact is very important. We have brand health equity modeling here, which starts to understand how not only is our advertising driving short-term sales, but it's also changing in consumer perception. This is not new news. Advertising changes how we perceive brands. How we perceive brands impacts the long-term consideration and then ultimately sales. I won't go into the techniques of how we do this, but if anyone does want to know, then please grab me at the end. But we have econometrics that measures the short-term uplift in our sales. We understand the short-term media, the impact of price, the impact of promotion. Through dynamic modeling, we can see how our base is evolving over time. And then we can start to link the role that our media is having in driving that base change. We can then start to understand what is the role of those different perception metrics. So when we change perception, what role does that have in driving our base sales? Through this approach, we can now not only measure the short-term impact of our media, but also attribute to the long-term impact. So fully understand the role that our media has had across all the different touch points in driving our performance. I'm going to show a very quick video from Mark Evans from DLG, who's just going to talk about how they have used this approach to drive their business performance. Oh, I would, if there was sound. He is pretty much just saying it's a really good approach. And I'll share it another time. I'm sure we can put a link around. But yeah, he is saying how they have used this approach to quantify the impact of factors such as awareness, such as perception. So they're not going to the finance teams and saying it drives brand. They're able to actually quantify the role of this. So thanks. So I guess the challenge with attribution is I don't think we should be coming and saying we want digital attribution or even we want econometrics. We should be focusing on what is our objective, what do we want to get, how do we want to change our business, and then we should be looking at what is the right approach in the suite of various tools that will actually answer that question.